Hey everyone, this is Monica Duarte. I hope you guys are doing well and having a relaxing Sunday. I just wanted to make a video and talk a little bit about racism and some of the insights that I've gained from the perspective of a Mexican person. With all this stuff going on, I've actually, it's taken me quite a while to figure out if I wanted to do this video or not, because my intention is to always be respectful to the movement, the Black Lives Matter movement. Um, so that's my priority, is to be respectful of that, and but use my experiences as a Mexican person and a person of color, because I don't know if people somehow think that I'm white because my skin is lighter, but I'm not. Like, I'm a caramel olive color, and I don't consider myself white. So my intention is to use my experience with racism to stand up. Hey, Louis, how are you? To stand up against racism and bring a different insights as well. Because although I'm not black, I don't understand everything that black folks go through. I can understand some things based on the racism that I experienced when I was a kid. So when I was little, my skin color actually was a little bit darker. So just to give you a heads up, I'm mixed. I'm part indigenous, and then I have Spanish from Spain, ancestry as well. So I'm mixed. So when I was little, and I moved to the U.S., my parents brought me and my brother and my sister to the U.S. when we were 5. And when I was 5, I don't know how old they were. So at that time, like, my skin was actually quite a little bit darker. And I did experience racism. Specifically, I remember this one time, I think it was in 1st or 2nd grade, and this guy in my class, hey, I'm doing well, how are you? So this kid in my class, who's actually was Mexican too, but his skin was white, he used to bully me, and he used to be racist. Like, he would call me names, like he would call me chocolate. And then he would tell me that I was ugly, that, my skin color was ugly. And I didn't know how do you deal with that? You know what I mean? As like a little kid, how do you deal with that? And I'll actually tell you at the end, I'll share a story about that, because I ended up crossing paths with him later on. And it was kind of funny how, our interactions ended. But yeah, so, and also when I was little, my family and I were working to get our papers in the immigration, I did experience my mom, the guy that was supposed to help us with paperwork. Hi, Amy. He actually was really racist and kept telling my mom that we needed to go back to our country, that we shouldn't be here. And again, I was little, and I was just really shocked by, like, wow, is this how people are here in the U.S., and then we did experience a few times when we would go to the grocery stores or just stores, and we would have people like keep watching us, you know what I mean? Because we didn't look like we belonged here, like we're Mexican, you know what I mean? And then even as an adult too, I have experienced racism, and I know people are like, what, because they don't, it's hard to believe. I don't know why. I mean, I get it, but I don't at the same time. So when I lived in Oregon, like last year, I lived in Oregon, and then I worked at this spa for a little bit. And this lady at the spa that I worked at, we were working at the front desk, and this lady, I was working on stuff and then mentioning, like, just for fun for me, there was literally no clients there or anything. I was just saying people's names in Spanish, okay? There was no, like, that intention of that wasn't to be hurtful or anything like that. And so she heard me saying, instead of Maria, saying Maria, and she got offended over that and told me, like, why are you saying her name that way? And I said to her, like, well, I'm just saying them in Spanish. And she's like, well, we're in the U.S. right now. That's what she told me. And then later on, I had another argument with her where she, I was explaining to her and another coworker how some of the Mexican food here in the U.S. that people think is Mexican is actually not Mexican. It was created here in the U.S. For example, like burritos. We don't have burritos in Mexico. That was created here in the U.S. And she kind of got offended over that. And then she said, well, I've been to Mexico a lot of the times, and, they do have, like, burritos there, and they also have tortilla chips. And I looked at her and I said, well, tortilla chips, we don't really have tortilla chips in Mexico. Like, in my state where I was born, we don't, that's not normal. Like they don't give, when you buy a meal, they don't give you potato, tortilla chips with that. Like that's not normal or common. And so she got really upset over that. And she said to me, why I've been going to Mexico with my husband for 20 something years. And who are you to tell me that? And I'm looking at her and like, lady, I'm Mexican. Like I know my culture better than you do. Okay. So this literally happened just a few months ago. So I just wanted to kind of like start off with some of the experiences that I dealt with racism, because I understand how it feels like to be shamed for who you are and for being different. And so what I understood from this, like having to deal with this with myself and understanding how this actually can impact, this understanding actually applies to people that are Black, any person of color, doesn't matter what country you're from. So when you're in a country where you are told that white is superior, that being, white is entitlement, that you're entitled because you're white, that you're superior because you're white, and then anything that doesn't look like you is less than you. So imagine like growing up in a country or in a place where you're, as a little kid, you're literally being told that over and over again, that who you are as a human being is not normal, it's shameful, and you should feel ashamed of yourself, and like, so what ends up happening is that you start to experience shame of who you are as a kid. You experience shame for being Mexican, for being of different color, for not looking, or being white. And so what you start to do is you start to try to fit in, right? And I'm sorry if this word offends people, but basically you start to get whitewashed. So what ends up happening is that you start to kind of like put your culture or your roots to the side and not really focus on that anymore, because that's shameful. You can't look at that, right? So you start to like want to fit in, and you start to become, again, whitewashed, where you act more white than you are, from your native country, just to fit in. And so for me, like, I've been looking at myself and understanding how that actually, I experienced that. Like, that's literally what I experienced in my life. And I can see how people, of other colors can experience this too. And like, one of the things that's been really difficult for me is understanding like people that are Black and people that are Hispanic that support Trump. And it's like, why do they do that? Like, why are they supporting him? Don't they understand that that person does not like people that look like you? Like, so for me, that's where the whitewashing comes in, when you're literally told that who you are is not normal, that who you are should be shameful, that you should hide who you are, your roots. And what that creates is self-hate. So not only as people of color, being Mexican, Black, anybody of color, not only do you deal with people telling you that, racism, like literally white folks telling you, being racist towards you, there's another hidden layer that we deal with as far as like hate for ourselves, like being hateful, like hating ourselves, like inner racism of ourselves, because we're being told that we should feel ashamed for who we are instead of like embracing who we are. So that's one of the big things that I wanted to share, because that's something that I feel that people don't really look at, or they don't really understand how it impacts. Like, it's easy to say like end racism, but how do you help those people that have been dealing with racism and they've taught that to hate themselves? Like, how do you heal that? Do you know what I mean? So for me, like, that's been really empowering, because I've been using that understanding to connect back to my roots, to really embrace the fact that I am mixed. I do have Spanish ancestry, but I also have indigenous ancestry. And I'm proud of that. Like, I'm not going to be shamed for who I am. I'm not going to be shamed because I don't look white enough or I don't look dark enough. Like, my power comes from me knowing myself and knowing who I am and embracing that and standing firm in that. And nobody gets to tell me who I am, or to not talk, to not have an opinion. Like, I don't care who you are. I just don't care. So let me see. I wrote down some notes because I knew I was going to forget. And let's see what else here. Well, I actually went through a lot of this stuff. That's awesome. Yeah, so like another thing that I wanted to share is like, even, I've had people tell me that I don't look Mexican. Like, they look at me and they think that I don't look Mexican. And so for me, when somebody says that to me, I feel ashamed. Like, I feel like I'm supposed to be ashamed that I'm Mexican, and if that makes sense, because it's like, oh, you can pass for white. Like, you don't have to worry about the stuff that Mexicans deal with. You don't have to feel ashamed that, you know, about being Hispanic, because you can pass for white or whatever. And for me, but then when people say that to me, I'm like, but I am Mexican. Like, I'm Mexican. My birth certificate says I was born in Mexico. It doesn't say I was born here. And I'm not white. Like, my freaking skin color is olive, it's caramel color. You know, so like when I take pictures with my friends that are white, I don't look like them. Like, I do not look like them at all. So I actually had, like, when Trump won, and by the way, he won because he was using Hispanic people, Mexican people as a scapegoat for his election. He won by that. And so when he won, I actually experienced fear. Like, I was really afraid for myself. I was afraid for my family. Like, what's going to happen to my family? What's going to happen to me? Like, I'm Mexican, you know, and people are being brainwashed to be told that, like, Mexicans are criminals, that they're rapists. I'm not any of that. So, you know, so for me, that was a big concern. So I did tell a friend about my concern, and her response was like, oh, don't worry about it. You know, you don't look Mexican. And so for me, that was like really just ignorant. It's like, but that doesn't erase the fact that I am Mexican, and it doesn't erase the fact that I do have fear over the fact that this is happening in our country with this dumb president. And I'm sorry, I'm not a big fan of him at all. So for me, like, what I've been coming to understand, and again, everybody that's of color, like indigenous people, like, you know, our black folks, Hispanic people, like, we have to reconnect back to our roots. Like, so many of us have been whitewashed to hate ourselves, to not respect who we are, to not respect our ancestors of color, because we're too ashamed to look at that. And so right now is really important that we start to respect ourselves, and to start connecting to our roots again and claiming our power back and not being ashamed of that. And you know what? If it makes a white folk feel uncomfortable, that's their problem, not ours, because I don't feel ashamed. When I see a white person, I'm not telling them to be ashamed of who they are. The only thing that I'm asking them is to not be racist. And that's really different. You know what I mean? So for me, like, that's been a really healing perspective to have, where, like, even me, like, the Black Lives Matter movement has been healing even for me that I'm Mexican. Because now it's like, wow, people are actually admitting that, you know, that racism still exists. And that's been healing for me, to look at, you know, my own shame of being Mexican, of being told that I should be ashamed of being Mexican, you know, and black folks are being told to be ashamed for being black. They can't change being black. Why should they be, you know what I mean? Like, why should they be ashamed over that? This just doesn't make any sense. And who in the heck came up with the idea? Like, I want to meet the person when it's my time to go to heaven. I want to meet the person that came up with the idea of white being superior, being supreme, or whatever, because that person is mentally ill. And anybody that follows that person's mindset is also mentally ill. And I'm sorry, but a nation that believes that, you know, somebody that is white is superior or better than anybody else, that's a mentally ill nation. And we need to stop following that mindset, because that mindset is evil and it's mentally ill, and it's actually been shown to be quite narcissistic, which is actually a mental disorder. So a lot of people that are racist actually are quite narcissistic, and they're mentally ill. They just don't know it. And the people that are open to seeing their ignorance and to understand that the way that they've been raised, or the way that society has taught them to think about other people that don't look like them, is not correct, that's awesome. Like, that doesn't mean you're mentally ill. It just means that you were ignorant, and now you can look at that, and now you can heal it and start to see people for who they really are. And another thing that I wanted to say in regards to that is for people that say that I don't see color. I know that like, people mean well when they say that, but it's actually quite demeaning to a person of color, okay? Because people, like, black folks are black. And so when you say to them that I don't see color, you're telling them I don't see you. Like, I don't see you for who you are. And so if you'll ask a black person, and I've actually been talking to my friends that are black, because I want to understand more. If you ask them, like, how that impacts them, you know, when somebody tells them I don't see color, they will tell you, a lot of them will tell you, I don't feel seen, because I know that I'm black. I know that I'm a black person. I know that I'm different than them. So when you're telling somebody that I don't see color, please stop doing that. Like, don't do that. Please just notice the person. They're black. there's nothing wrong with it. Like, I'm Mexican, I'm brown, there's nothing wrong with it. And that's the issue, is that we're trying to like fit in into this bubble of the way that we should be, and that's not real freedom. Real freedom is being unique, like being different. Like, our power comes from being different, not from fitting in with every little thing. You know what I mean? The only thing that makes us equal is the fact that we're human, so we all deserve respect. But as far as like my culture, like, I don't know what a black person's culture is because I'm not black. I can definitely learn about it, but just the same thing that like somebody who's white can't say they know me or understand me because they're not Mexican. You know what I mean? So we instead of like trying to fit in into like, you know, if you want to be in this country, you need to be more white. No, like, if you like, what we need to do is start to see each other for our uniqueness and our differences, and seeing that as a good thing instead of a bad thing, as an empowering thing instead of like a thing you shouldn't look at, because that's not helpful. That's not empowering. That's not real freedom. I don't know who ever came up with the idea that, you know, that I'm supposed to be like somebody else in order to fit in. Like, no, I can fit in my own uniqueness and in my own, and be Monica, you know, and like Javi can fit in being Javi, and Amy can fit in being Amy. Like, I don't have to ask her to be like me or to be like anybody else. So that's the main thing that I wanted to share with people, is just literally learning to respect each other's differences. We don't all have to fit in with the way that somebody else thinks. As long as you're not harming anybody, you know, you're not killing people, like, there's nothing wrong with being different. And we need to start looking at being different as a good thing instead of a bad thing or a shameful thing, because that's very disempowering. And there's so much work we still have to do right now in our country with that idea. You know, like, and then, you know, I will be honest too, like, even in the Mexican community, there are people who are Mexican too that are racist towards black people because they're ignorant, like, they don't understand. So please stop that. Like, for my Hispanic family and friends, like, don't be racist against Mexican people, because it's demeaning. And like, you should feel, and this is the only time I will say shame, you should feel ashamed of yourselves if you're being racist towards black people, because you know what it feels like to be a minority. You know what it feels like to struggle. You know what it feels like to be like, have people be racist towards you. So what gives you the idea that you can be like that to somebody else? Like, this doesn't make any sense. So I'm making the commitment that, like, moving forward, you know, that if I ever see anybody being racist to anybody, I'm going to call you guys out. And I say it with the most love and respect, because I know you can do better. I know that we can all do better. We can all try harder, and we can all learn to respect each other for our differences as human beings, because in the end, we're all human beings. So I think that's all I have to share from that. And so I'll leave with the little end story here about that little kid that was bullied me and called me that called me chocolate and tried to shame me for being colored. So in 9th grade, I actually ended up having him in class, and I didn't know it was him. Like, I completely forgot about the way he looked, and he remembered me. So what he started doing, this was in our health class, he started bullying me again. And he actually got to the point where he tried to stab me with a pencil on my leg several times. And I was just like, what the heck is wrong with this guy? Like, why does he think he can do that to me, you know? So I'm a very patient person. Like, many people that know me that, like, I'm caring, I'm loving, I'm gentle. But oh my God, when you cross that boundary, like, when I'm done, I'm done. And you don't want to get to the point with me, because when I'm done, you will know that I'm done, and it will stick with you for a long time. So what ended up happening is with this dude is, I warned him, like, you need to stop. If you don't stop right now, you'll see what, you know, I'm going to do something about it. And he didn't believe me. So what I ended up doing, so in class, we had, like, in health class, we had these tables that were long. I mean, there was like 3 kids on one side and 3 kids on the other side. And he was sitting on one side and I was sitting on the other side, and there was a kid in the middle. So what I ended up doing is, like, he tried to stab me again with the pencil. So I asked the kid in the middle to move back. And then I literally, like, reached over him and grabbed the kid by the shirt. And I went over to literally punch him in the face. So what ended up happening is that he got scared and he went back and then fell off the chair. And then the whole class looked at him and started laughing. Mind you, this kid turned out to be a gangster, okay? So, and then after that, like, the kids kept making fun of him because it's like the idea, like, oh, a girl almost beat you up, you know what I mean? But what ended up happening after that is our teacher actually made us go to conflict resolution, which was like a thing that they had in our school. So we both went to conflict resolution with this therapist, and that's when I found out, that's when this kid told me that, you know, oh yeah, we used to be in the same class in whatever grade, I don't remember. And that's when it clicked, and I'm like, oh my God, you still have like literally the guts to be like racist towards me even now? Like, no, you don't get to do that anymore. And then what ended up happening after that is I actually ended up joining the conflict resolution club, and I was part of it like for 2 or 3 years, because I'm the kind of person, like, I don't like to fight. Like, I don't like to fight. It's not part of who I am. I actually don't like chaos. I don't like people just being really aggressive towards each other. It's not me. So I always try to find better ways to create peace or whatever. So for me, like, I don't know what it was in me. I was just a kid. Like, I took that as an experience, and I'm like, okay, I want to learn how to communicate better, you know, so that I don't allow people like this dude trying to stab me or hurt me, you know what I mean? So I ended up joining that club, and I actually helped other kids in our high school learn how to resolve their issues. Like, I was a mediator for them, and we actually did get quite a bit of kids that were gangsters, you know, that had to go, and I was mediating them. So, so it's just really funny how it ended up just kind of going full circle. And ever since then, I feel like that was kind of like my initiation to my path of being, you know, like I'm a peacemaker, you know, I'm a peacemaker, but I'm not dumb. Like, I know when you have to set boundaries and you have to be firm. And like, I've had people with my, you know, with Facebook posts that, you know, they know me as like this caring, like my voice is like not as like, when I sing, it's like deeper, you know, but it's like higher pitched and whatever. And then they see me posting stuff like defending, you know, standing up against racism, and they're like, well, Monica, like, you're being divisive. I'm like, no, I'm not being divisive. I'm literally telling you to stop being racist. Like, you know, and like, I've had somebody tell me that, you know, anger, like, I'm being really angry. And like, it's really important to understand that anger in itself is not bad. It's how you use it that makes it good or bad. You can use anger to empower and to create a positive outcome. If you're using anger to hit somebody, to be aggressive, to be abusive, that's wrong, and you need help. You can't use anger that way. You can use anger to help lift people up, because when you get tired of enough abuse, it's like you have to get angry so that you can use that as a vehicle to help move you to start making actions to create the world that you want to see and to create justice. And that's how I'm using anger. So anybody that takes me being angry the other way, like, you don't know me that well, obviously, because I'm not like that, okay? So yeah, that's what I have to share. Thank you so much for watching. I kind of rambled on a bit. And thank you, Javi and Amy, for your comments. I will look, and Danielle too. I will read through them. I wasn't reading them through them right now because I just is really in the moment. So thank you so much. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to seeing how we evolve as a society, and we help to dismantle racism, because it's not okay. Like, that's just not okay. Like, the idea, like the whole idea that, you know, even the system, the way the system is created here in the US is like, was created by white people. So we got to look at that too, and like transform that in a way that it includes all people, not just people of white, that are white. Okay, thank you so much. And yeah, keep standing up against racism. And yeah, thank you so much. Bye.